When I started my residency, one of my obligations was to present at journal club meetings where you take a few articles and you present them to the staff so they learn and, widen their horizons. And the first time I had to present, I was a bit anxious. The whole department, about 30 to 40 doctors, and I found this article talking about corneal therapies for corneal edema, especially that can perhaps avoid the need for transplantation. Multiplication of endothelial cells, which was then really at the real beginning of this field. I found this interesting and I went to research and see if there's an artificial solution for corneal transplantation, and found that there are very, very few artificial solutions. Boston K-Pro, there was a group in Stanford working on one. So I dug in a bit, but then the residency took over and I had so many obligations that I left it on the side and I didn't pay attention to it for a few years. After I completed my residency and my surgical retina fellowship, I was exposed to this material technology platform that we're using at CorNeat Vision that allows us to imitate tissue and fool the body. And then interest that I had for corneal solutions rekindled. And after being exposed, it took me a few years, drafted a patent regarding the topic, and the rest is history. We founded Vision based on this patent and started developing this artificial cornea to potentially bridge the gap between the needs of patients and the availability of tissue, surgeons, cornea banks, which are very lacking all over the world when compared to the problem. EverPatch, like its name, is synthetic or everlasting substitute for tissue. So until today, all the solutions available in the market were based on harvested tissue, either locally at the hospital's eye bank from donations or processed by commercial entities. Just recently, in the past few years, in the United States, this whole market became commercial. So hospitals pay for body parts, which is also something on the ethical level, which is a bit questionable, right? Commercializing human remains, that's very strange as a physician. Another disadvantage was the fact that they're all degradable. They all, with time, degrade and eventually can expose whatever they're trying to conceal. Usually we use patches of tissue to conceal glaucoma drainage devices or irritating suture tags or any other thing that might be exposed to the conjunctiva. Our EverPatch is non-degradable, so it comes from a polymer. It will never expose in the future. It cannot carry disease because it is not harvested from humans, but rather manufactured and then sterilized. And it's also very easy for the surgeon to handle because it's much thinner. Being non-degradable allows us to create it much thinner than what tissue comes with. Tissue is about 4 times as thick, so it takes a lot of space under the conjunctiva, which makes the surgeon need to pull the conjunctiva and create tension on the wound. So there are various different, like I mentioned, advantages of being completely synthetic. So we still call ourselves the EverPatch, showing that we originated from tissue, but actually we are completely different because we are made from synthetic material, we are manufactured, sterilized, and just the use of this material is similar to what tissue is used for or has been used for until now. So we have drafted patents in various fields like orthopedics and many other things. We're just now in discussions with Mayo Clinic about the potential of using the material in cardiology, which is one of their focus points in Mayo Clinic Ventures. We believe that we can integrate our material technology, the EverMatrix, to try and solve various issues in current medical devices. Medical devices currently are usually artificial devices, have an issue with the interface with our own tissue. For example, if you implant something under the skin, there can be a small potential space around that implant that might get infected. We can see that in various reservoirs that are implanted under the skin for cancer patients that usually can get infected very, very severely and must be then removed from the body. Dialysis shunts, cardiology pacemakers, that's one aspect where our material technology can assist, but also inside the body. If we look at various areas where we want to integrate integrate with the surrounding tissue and give a solution that is much more physiological or much more similar to the damaged organ, we believe that our material technology can bridge the gap between a synthetic artificial implant and the human tissue in a way that it integrates instead of just sits there and is waiting for a complication. So, like I said regarding Mayo Clinic, maybe I can mention one more thing is we just recently won a grant from the US Navy to develop solutions in the maxillofacial area. They have various soldiers wounded from blasts or from a gunshot in the facial area, and sometimes when you use metallic bars to reconnect bones and so forth, they get exposed with time. And that's one of the big issues with reconstruction of our maxillofacial area, the facial area. And we're just recently, a few months ago, won a grant of $2.25 million to develop the combination of our material with various solutions that are available in order to allow them to last much longer and give a permanent solution instead of a temporary solution that needs additional surgeries for repair and maintenance. So, first of all, we have to remember that people with the need for corneal transplantation replacement are usually blind. Not all of them are bilaterally blind. Some of them have only blindness in one eye, so they're still independent, but we all would like to see with both eyes. I think that CorNeat Vision and other companies going after solving this in an artificial way, and also improvements in corneal transplantation techniques, will eventually, maybe in a decade or two, bring ophthalmology to an area where people with corneal blindness can mostly be treated either with, transplanting human tissue, or like I told you about in my journal club when I read initial research done on manipulating endothelial cells to multiply them and solve corneal edema, which is a very big issue in corneal blindness. So that's maybe will be able to be solved with drops or medication and not surgery. So the way I envision it is that these blind patients that currently have limited access to treatment. If we look around the world, every 70 patients that are waiting for a transplantation receives one transplant. This is worldwide. So 69 of these 70, they remained blind. And I believe that within 2 decades, 20 years from now, let's say 2045, it seems very far in the future, but these projects usually take time. I believe that by then, many more patients will be able to stand under the umbrella of therapy and receive a solution for their blindness. So just maybe an anecdote from the CorNeat K-Pro first in human trial, we were able to bring patients back from blindness to 20/20 vision. So I believe that your question about vision correction, we will be able to initially tackle blindness. With time, like refractive surgery brought correction of vision through manipulating the corneal tissue. I believe that with time we will be able also to use these artificial implants to enhance our vision potential even beyond what we currently know. So 20 years perhaps giving a better solution for blind people, and maybe afterwards giving improved and enhanced vision even for people who are healthy and don't have any. Thank you. And like I said, it's a team effort, first of all. We have various advisory board members, which are very experienced professors in ophthalmology. I think the initial step of inventing is looking for a need, or even just stumbling accidentally on an unmet need. Like I told you about the cornea, I needed to present in journal club. I stumbled upon an article talking about cornea. It piqued my interest, and the rest is history. So locate a need. You need a lot of curiosity. There's a lot of research, a lot of hard work that goes into understanding what has been tried in the past. For example, one of the things that I usually do initially is I go into a patent database and I look for patents that previously were drafted and tried to tackle a specific problem that I am looking at. It is almost impossible to come upon an issue, especially in medicine, that many smart people in the past didn't, they have written IP and try to solve the problem. So there's a lot of things you can learn from the literature, from the professional literature in corneal medicine, a lot of things that you can learn from IP. And eventually you need to do a lot of trial and error. You need to look for a good animal model or a good potential human model that you can try it on safely, not risking patients. And you have to be able also to adapt. I can tell you that with the development of the EverPatch, the need was evident because, like I told you, current solutions are all harvested and processed human remains, and they're all degradable and they have their problems. So there is a problem that needs to be solved. We had the material that we used for the K-Pro. The thickness of the skirt was, just as an example, 250 microns. So the first clinical trial we did was with 250 micron EverPatch, but it did not work well. And we need to go back to the drawing board, and eventually we arrived at a much thinner EverPatch, and then we tried it again, an additional human cohort, eventually seeing that this cohort did great. So thinning it and rounding the edges with a cold laser just so that it won't be sharp at the edges and cut the tissue, various different small things that you need to do by trial and error. You cannot invent it. It's not a light bulb. Listen, I'm so smart, I invented this all from the beginning to the end. It doesn't happen that way. Usually you need to be motivated, you need to find a problem to solve, you need to research what has been done in the past, and then you need to try and take into consideration that you will fail at least a few times before you're able to succeed. So it's not so glorious, like the light bulb and the genius it's not like that. It's a lot of hard work, and you have to be focused, and you have to know that sometimes you don't succeed. I think that's the answer to your question. We are laser focused now on starting to distribute the EverPatch and starting to sell. As a research and development company until today, we have never sold anything. So this is something like an innovation for CorNeat Vision, right? Because a group of people, a team that knows how to engineer and tackle problems they are not usually very accustomed to selling, which needs a completely different skill set. So CorNeat Vision now is focused on trying to ramp up sales for its EverPatch, which just recently received approval. We are rolling out in the United States, and we have already close discussions with key centers like Mass Eye and Ear in Harvard, like NYU, like Johns Hopkins, Wilmer Eye, like Wills Eye, Georgetown, and so forth, leading centers throughout the US. These are surgeons that will teach us also, now that we roll up, if there are still things that we need to learn. And we have to initially launch it in a soft manner with a few selected centers, make sure that everything is okay, that the batch is okay, and then we can roll out. So that's our primary focus. In parallel, we have 2 additional solutions in ophthalmology, which are going into clinical trial, another clinical trial, the artificial cornea, and a solution for glaucoma, which is now in final steps of animal trials just before initiating the first clinical trial. So that's our major focus. We are looking to expand to various additional fields where we think we can bring value. Currently, we're in discussions with Mayo Clinic, potentially in cardiology. We cannot spread ourselves too thin. We're a very small team, and we need to stay focused on what we are currently trying to achieve. And in parallel, always keep something, cooking on a small flame. So I think this potential collaboration with a big famous hospital like Mayo Clinic, or potentially Mass Eye and Ear in Harvard, or some very big powerhouse in the United States that can put us in touch with the leading physicians of a specific field and try to brainstorm solutions. Like I said, market needs and the potential of our material to solve this market need, and try to find a collaboration with a strategic academic institute and not carry the burden all by ourselves. I think that's one of our goals. We at CorNeat really appreciate to collaborate and share success. We do not need the fame and the success all to ourselves. On the contrary, we are trying to bring health and trying to do it in a way that will bring equality, so we can also give our solutions to places in the world that are less privileged. So it is important to us to come from there and collaborate with additional institutions. Currently, like I said, we're working on something in the maxillofacial space, and we're examining things in the cardiology space. I believe that potential for the material EverMatrix can generate additional projects and value as we go along and grow. And when we will be able, through the sales, for example, revenue, to enlarge our team and to put more focus on research, we can expand and look for additional indications where we can bring our knowledge and our intellectual property and leverage it to improve our patients' outcomes and patients' health.